Welcome to the Alan Hudson Podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name's Tony Jimenez. If you like the podcast, please remember, click on our subscribe button on our YouTube channel. That'd be a great help to us. Today, we're going to remember the great Stanley Bowles, former QPR legend and great friend of the guy who's sitting beside Alan Hudson today. They're both sitting in the sunny climes of Egypt, and it is, of course, Don Shanks. Welcome, Don. Welcome, Alan. What's the weather like over there?
The weather's boiling hot, 85 degrees. Slight breeze, which is cooling it down a bit. What's it like where you are?
It's about 40 degrees lower than that, and thanks for telling us.
Yeah, we'll be back there next week. Don't worry.
Brilliant. But as I say, we're remembering the great Stanley Bowles today, who unfortunately passed away last week. Don, of course, was a great friend of Stan, and I'm sure he's got a lot of fantastic anecdotes that he could pass on to us today of his time with Stan. But I'd like to start off with Alan first and ask Alan to really put in a nutshell what Stan was as a footballer.
Well, it was quite strange, really, because as an apprentice at Chelsea and you come through, there's always used to be this thing. West Ham had Trevor Brooking, Tottenham had Steve Perryman. Strangely enough, we never played QPR, but they would have had Jerry France at that time. All over London, they had this kid that was coming through, and it was always someone on a training ground would say, "Oh, he's better than him. I'll have him." Chico hammered it at Chelsea, who made his debut when he was 15. But I think I know he was a little bit older then. He kind of broke the mould. He came down. He couldn't make it anywhere else. As Don's mentioned to me along the way, he was a bit of got himself in a lot of trouble along the way.
Wayward character, man.
Yeah, wayward character. Well, we was all wayward. We were no different from Stan. Kids were kids. We were brought up in the times when everybody was a rascal. So, but then all of a sudden, I was a Fulham supporter as a young kid, and I, as I said, never meet your hero, and I did, Rodney Marsh, and I wish I hadn't have done it. But he was a king of Loftus Road, and I watched them play, and then all of a sudden, Stan comes from right out the blue, and everybody, the saying goes that people were feared of the number 10 shirt. It was this kind of magic shirt that couldn't follow Rodney Marsh. And when he was asked about it, when he first joined QPR, they said, "Stan, how do you feel about wearing the number 10 shirt, Rodney Marsh?" And like Stan would say, "Who is Rodney Marsh?" And when he went on the field, that was the way he played. There was no such thing as Rodney Marsh. Everybody at the Bush, from chanting Rodney, and they used to chant Rodney, it was all about Stanley. And from then on, he took over the place, and he become it's arguably the greatest player ever. That probably goes without any saying.
Don, you played with him for several years at Loftus Road. What made him special as a teammate?
It's just his style of play. He was always available in real tight, tough situations, and you were getting the ball up to him, and the defenders were unmerciful. They'd be bashing him, crashing him, but he would jump, he'd get fouled, he'd up quick. He was just someone that wanted the ball all the time. You take a throw, you look in the game now, and it takes him about 30 seconds to take a throw in. He'd be there right away, straight to him, boom, play. Glued to his foot. Trained very hard. A perfect professional when he was at the training ground and when he was playing games. Off the field, like I saw, we had our little things we like to do, and that's all well documented. But as a footballer, he was special. He was the best player that I've ever played with, and I've played against a lot of the good ones. And I played against Stanley, and I knew what he was going to do, but I still couldn't stop him. Work that one out. When I'm playing against our dealies at Tottenham, I've done well. Liam Brady, the Glenn Hoddle, Trevor Brookie, whoever it might be. Stanley, different mould, special player.
of course, he was a great goal scorer and a great layer on of goals as well, wasn't he, Alan?
I think he wasn't a great goal scorer. He was a great goal taker. He was like in the, they talk about Alan Shearer and these kind of players. He was an incredible player. But then there was Jimmy Greaves. Stan was in the same, I would class him in the Jimmy Greaves class, and there was no better than Jimmy Greaves. I mean, he was incredible. I watched him as a kid. I played against him. I loved Jimmy as a person, and and Stan was like that. Like they would probably class Jimmy exactly the same. If you were talking to Jimmy's Tottenham teammates now, they would say he was in a class of his own.
It's like Alan's saying there. It's like Alan Shearer. We love him as a goal scorer, but loads of his goals were like rockets into the corners and bash. Greavesy, Bowlesy, it was finesse, it was style, it was just looked so easy. How was it so easy?
A thing of beauty, isn't it?
It was, yeah. You watched him, you just thought everyone else is under pressure, and here he is, just strolling in. They've tried to hit him, he's gone by there, the goalie's rushed out, like trying to intimidate him, and he'd laugh and just stroke it in the corner. And Greasy used to go around the goalies the same way and just tap it in. Like some people have that, but there isn't many. And Bowlesy was probably the best at it at that time in the first division as it was then.
Tell us a bit about, because your friendship was everlasting. I mean, you were mates for 40 odd years. Tell us how your friendship started and how you cultivated such a closeness between you.
Well, I think we obviously had a couple of things in common, mainly, sort of gambling. And I bumped into him with Jerry Francis, they were going out for dinner when Stan had just arrived from Carlisle. And the big article in the paper the Sunday before, and he had a photo of Stan arriving in London. And it's sort of like he had his pockets empty out, and he said, "I'm giving up the gambling, this, that, and the other." I went, "Oh." So we had a dinner one night, and I said, "Oh, you packed up the gambling?" He said, "Yeah, it's just too much, really." Anyway, so we went and had a meet on the Friday night, and we went and watched the film, Pictures, Clockwork Orange. That was enough to send you off planet Earth. But so the next week, there weren't no Pictures. It was Wimbledon Dogs or Wembley Dogs, White City on the Saturday. And that's how it was socially, sort of after the games. We'd head to the dog track. But he used to enjoy the environment. He used to love being on the football field. He didn't have any problems on the football field because he was in total control. Outside the football field, there's other issues going on. But on the field, he was just a dream to play football with. Absolutely. I mean, I played with a lot of players and there was nobody like him. They're even if he's having a bad day, give me the ball. He could turn a bad day very quickly into a good day.
And then there's lots of great stories about Stan around, but one of those stories that perpetuates is the one that purportedly he was in the betting shop 5 minutes before you were due to kick off at Loftus Road on a Saturday afternoon. How true was that?
Right? That one's an impossibility. He'd be in the betting shop, I'd say, till maybe 2:20, which is meant to be in the ground at 2. But they'd been in there, put his coat in. He'd say, "Take me coat and put it on the peg in there, Don." I said, yeah. So I'd go in early, put the tracksuit on, put my kit underneath, tracksuit on, and Stan and walk down to the ground. People would be in the betting shop saying, "Are you playing today, Stan?" "Yeah." He look around like, yeah, I'm playing. And
then there was that.
I'm not sure that really comes across.
Yes, the young model there, of course. Yes.
Well, he was a model as well,
Yeah, we. I don't think we can. Oh, yes, we can see it better now. Yeah.
Well, that was Stanley when he was not messing about with dogs.
Yeah. But anyway, no, he would go in the betting shop. He'd put a bet on, and then he'd go and watch the 2:30 up in the sort of one of the areas upstairs, the VIP area. And I'd go down to the dressing room, get ready. And it'd be about 2:45, he's still not here. So obviously the 2:30 got a bit delayed, probably a photo finish, and Stan won't leave until he knows the result. People are saying, "You can't be playing today, Stan." "Oh, yeah, I'm playing." And it would be all of a sudden Dave Sexton panicking, he's going around the dressing room and talking to, "Where's Stan, Don? Where's Stan?" "I was here somewhere, Dave," and I'm biting a towel laughing because this is madness. The door would open and just after 2:45, and Stan would stroll in the way he does. And everybody would stare and look at him. And Dave would go, where you been? Oh, I've been, I'm ready, I'm okay. And he put the kit on in 5 minutes, we'll all be walking out, and he'd go, in the first 5 minutes, he'd do something magical. So he could get away with it.
It's called preparation, isn't it? We all got a different kind of preparation. And he prepared watching the race before the game. We actually used to do that at Highbury when I played for Arsenal. We were in, as you come down the tunnel, down the steps, which is the tunnel onto the Highbury field, you turn left into the little players' room, and there's a lounge, and the racing used to be on in there. We used to nip in there before we, went onto the field. Me and Chippy Brady and one or two others, and we might have had a little. But you get things like that, and then you got the other side of the game when Don was at Luton, and Malcolm MacDonald told me as well that Eric Moulton used to come in the room and tell everyone a joke before the game. There's a million different ways to get them players on the field, but to get on the field to be more relaxed, you couldn't think of a more relaxed person than Stan. I mean, he didn't have a nerve in his body when it comes to football. Didn't bother him.
I mean, one of the funny stories, Tony, was it was Grand National Day, and we'd had a few quid on the Wonder Horse Red Rum. And like in them days, people would have transistor radios behind the goal listening to the National. I can't remember who we were playing, but they got a corner. And when we had the corner, I'd stand on the post and Stan would be in front of me, like to head the short one out if it came in there. Well, I think there was about 2 to go, as in fences. And you could hear them, Red Rum's coming on the outside, the ball come in, as opposed to heading it that way, another corner. I think they got 6 corners, this team, in about 4 minutes. And anyway, Red Rum actually sort of won. And we get the stages where we have a tip for a horse. And we tell the guys to tip for the horse. And maybe at 3:30, they'd be cheering the horse's name. And standing and go, yeah, we got it all right. He had no fear. Football was easy for him. Nerves, he had no nerves whatsoever. Just give him the ball. If they fouled him, he'd jump up and gesticulate and this, that, and the other. But he'd just get on with it. And, he was brilliant.
Well, it's a little bit along the same lines as our great friend Mickey Shannon, he played for England I played with him in the under-23s, played with him in the 14. But his saying was to every manager that whoever took him over at Southampton, which he was a one-club player. I know he went to Man City and Norwich or whatever, but he said the game was just a hobby. And that, I wouldn't say Stan. For me, it was, I was brought up. I loved the game. I wanted to try and be the best I could actually be. And that's what I thought out with managers before, because they were stopping me from being that. Now, Mickey Shannon, the story says he goes around, he's in the dressing room, and McMenemy come in one day, was screaming and hollering at the players, and he got to Mick to say something, and Mick just folded his legs and put his hand up, and he went, not me, mate. This is a hobby. Carry on. Go the next one, And that was exactly like Stan. Stan would do that and say, it's them 10, I've done my bit. He was a little bit that way without ever becoming a great horse trainer.
How did he get on with the managers then, Don? I mean, they must have been tearing his hair out at him.
Well, I'll be honest with you, it weren't really that way, because Stan actually used to sort of nod his head and listen. But then when he got on the field, he just done what he wanted to do. But because he'd chase back and he'd make a little tackle now and then, and because he was available all the time, no manager could really look at him and say he's not doing the other side of his game. And he did. He worked hard, Stanley, and he wasn't a manager's nightmare, put it that way. He's
what are you trying to say?
So I would say any manager that Stan played for, possibly other than Brian Clough, would have been delighted to have had him.
Well, I think we've been through this a million times on our podcast, and there's a lot of managers that just wouldn't have him in the team. England managers in particular, and they wouldn't have him in a team because they couldn't tell him what to do. You know, it's very difficult for a coach. You know, we say, what am I going to say to Stan Bowles? You know, what can you say to Johan Cruyff? What can you say to Maradona? You just got to leave them alone and get on with it. Tell your back four to sort themselves out. The goalkeeper knows what to do. You just leave geniuses like that alone. But as Don said, you know, he grafted. You know, you see him up there chasing lost causes, and you think, well, you know.
You know, that was the difference between Stan and, say, Rodney Marsh. You know, everybody talks about the number 10 shirt, which is great. As a kid growing up in the White City, Rodney was the cult hero in the bush, mine as well. We watch all the games. We go and see him. And yeah, Rodney for QPR then was incredible. We got to Wembley, we win 3-2, 2 down, Rodney. And then Rodney leaves. Stanley comes down from Carlisle. Who's this guy? And within a day, everyone has sort of forgot about Rodney and say, wait, you watch this fella play. And that was what it was. He worked. He wasn't greedy in the box. If he had a bad angle, he'd slide it right into you and say, you score. You know, and that to me was the difference. Plus, you know, obviously Stanley done it in the best QPR team. We finished second in the first division behind Liverpool. Unlucky not to get it at that point. In Europe, he was a top European scorer for QPR, as in goals he got in Europe for all the clubs as well playing in Europe. You know, he was scoring hat-tricks and twos and this and that against Cologne and like AEK Athens and, you know, decent sides. And we'd never been in Europe before. And, you know, it's difficult when you're playing there. Again, on the big stage, Stan the man produced.
Well, I think comparing the two is like I mentioned about the Gordon. Don kindly let me read Gordon Jago's book, which was really interesting, and he didn't really want to say it, but he had to say it. That when it comes to Rodney Marsh, it was all about himself. Even in his testimony, he said it was all about Rodney Marsh. It was not about a team. Now, I'm a great believer in playing for the team. And that rubs off on the field as well. We're like Don and I, you know, we're always talking about getting the lads together, you know. And these boys we've just lost in the last couple of years, all our mates, and we you know, we want to go and show our respects or do one of these. And it's not because, you know, not like when people leave us and they, like England, have put a statue outside. Fulham even put a statue of Michael Jackson outside. Don't know what he was to do with it, but we are team players. Don and I, but completely different people in sense of terms of players. But when it comes to the team, we're team players. And that's what the difference between Rodney Marsh and Stan. And I'm glad we're talking about this because that's what everybody in the pubs will be talking about. And that's what I love about us doing this, is because everybody in the pubs will be talking about him as a footballer.
I think the thing is as well, when you look at Rodney Marsh's time at QPR, it was fantastic, but we won the third division, this, that, and the other. We go to Wembley, we win there, and all the fans of that generation, it was all Rodney. And he was the QPR go-to player. Give him the ball. Rodney does a bit of magic, scores a few goals. And then Stan comes along. And now Stan was the go-to player, the working player, the classy player, and basically a real nice guy with it. Humble superstar.
Did he ever feel the weight of responsibility overtaking over the number 10 shirt from Rodney?
As Alan said, when he said, I've never heard of Rodney Marsh. Rodney who?
And he meant it.
Yeah, you know, it's like, I'm from Manchester, with Rodney Marsh. And, you know, I don't even think he was being disrespectful to Rodney. I seriously think he probably might not have known him.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't watch football, Stan. He didn't go to football, Stan. The only reason he turned up to football is because he was getting money. You know, you're getting paid. Well, you paid today, and, you know, if we won, like, you know, later in his later years at QPR, he'd go and see Uncle Jim Gregory. You know, he'd go up into the director's place and Jim would invite him up. He'd get his pocket money for the weekend. And off we go to the White City Dogs. But you know, that's how it was. You know, he had no fear of pressure at all on the football ground. Like I've seen him play one game, and he missed a penalty. Couldn't believe that he missed it. But I know one thing: if he's playing for England, and you had to take penalties. He'd be the least nervous person on the field. You know, probably say, "I'll hit this one in off the post." That's how we feel.
Well, you mentioned England there. I mean, it's a crying shame that that Stan only won 5 caps. I mean, why was that? You know, I mean, I know he wasn't on his own. There were a lot of players at that time. Alan's one of them. Frank Reddington, Peter Osgood. They never.
Look at
carry on, Don.
All these great players who were like technically fantastic. You know, you give the ball in the box to Garland, he scores. Frank Worthington scores. Bowlesy scores. Huddy creates. Tony Curry creates. Tony can score. They only got they didn't get 50 caps between them. They were the best 5 players in the country. Why? Because at the time, England was like, oh, we got to launch it forward, we got to do this, and nearly bypassed the midfield players. The midfield players are the most important players on the field. Give them the ball, make something happen. And so that time, I think, in English football was really like the managers who were buying into what the FA was saying, well, the long ball route, we'll win cups, we'll do this out of that. Well, I think they're all totally wrong.
We got a situation as well. It's winning sometimes can be the worst thing you can do. 66 kind of rebounded on this country big time because we won it with 3 or 4 players who were pretty inferior, you know. We left the greatest goal scorer out, Jimmy Greaves, and that led him to a life of misery. You don't know the trauma it causes when you're left out and to inferior players, and it broke Jimmy's heart. You see, I've seen films of the final whistle blowing at Wembley, and Jimmy Greaves, they're absolutely devastated that he couldn't play in that final against the Germans and in the semi-final. But Alf Ramsey deemed Roger Hunt to be a better part of his cog, as they call it. And today, you know, with great respect, I was a Fulham supporter. George Cohen was right back. And I can promise you, sincerely, with the greatest respect to George Cohen and his family and everybody else, Don was a better right back. John Gibman was a better right back. And I played with Stoke with Alan Dodd. He was a better right back. But they were around at the time, and they were Alf Ramsey's type of player. You know, and Nobby Stiles and whatever, they just, and it was their year, wasn't it? You know, even Jeff Hurst aimed for the corner flag and got it in the top corner. So,
I mean, that's why Venice was so good. Venice picked the best team.
Absolutely, individual.
Venice picked the flair players. Venice picked the best players who could get the job done. And like, you know,
and then entertain the crowd, and you know, football's coming home. It was, you know, what he done. Glenn Hoddle took over, and he didn't want Gascoigne to play because he was a little bit. I don't want him nicking my thunder, you know. Gascoigne was right up there, you know, another genius. But Hoddle didn't want him in a team because he didn't want them to say, "Oh, what a player," you know. That comes into it. But the 1996 thing, Venables picked the best 11 players in each position. Teddy Sheringham was great, you know, Shearer and Gascoigne, you know, Litton. Young Jamie Redknapp was so unlucky he got injured in it. He was a part of it.
It was so exciting watching.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. You know, I'm very anti-England because of the way they treated me. But 96 was incredible, absolutely incredible.
I mean, I was in America at the time, in Dallas, Texas, and we were watching that game. And when Gazza slid through and just was about half an inch away from putting the ball in, the whole place.
I got you a ticket for Wembley as well. You're in Dallas.
Got me a ticket for Wembley, yeah. The dog track.
He said in Dallas.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What was Stan ever troubled by the fact that he was never properly recognised by England?
Oh, he wouldn't. He'd probably have gone, if they don't want me, I couldn't care less. I know I'm better than all them in the team. Everybody knows I am. If he don't pick me, well, you know what he can do.
Yeah. I was exactly the same anyway. It was. Yeah, I don't think you realise. I don't think. I mean, I don't think it never got to Stan, because at that age you don't realise the harm that not playing for England causes. You know, the recognition. Bobby Moore once said to me, "Forget your club, play for your country. That is where you get world recognition." And as a kid, when I was playing, and then when I reached Stoke and I was playing the best football of my life, I was only 24, 25. Nothing else bothered me but to play for Waddington. I didn't watch England. I didn't read who they picked, you know, because I knew I was banned. I wouldn't get picked. And it didn't bother me. I loved playing football, and I loved playing for the man. You know, I play for people. I don't play for countries and teams. I play for the man. But it's not until you retire and we sit round, and me and Don sit down and say, "Cool, what does that cost you? Not playing for England?" You know, they're all on TV now, and you know their earnings, and you know, when Bobby Moore was right, he said to me, "Alan, you know, toe the line with England. Don't worry too much about the club." And that's what Bobby done. And Bobby I see him walk out for West Ham, mate, and he used to kick the ball in the air and run out of Upton Park. When he walked out with England, he was looked like King Kong, you know. It was unbelievable. He's just his whole demeanour, you know. And he felt that from the bottom of his heart. And when he went up to collect the Jules Rimet trophy, and he wiped his hands on the side, he didn't want to get the Queen's hands dirty, all that kind of stuff. I don't think I could have done that.
Yeah.
He'd have given her a betting slip.
You'd have probably given her a kiss.
He'd have gone, "Here, Your Majesty, back this dog tonight."
Each way.
Yeah. And they had dogs at Wembley at that time.
They did, yeah.
Alan talks there about playing for the man, and I've got to ask you, Don, about Stan's time at Nottingham Forest and playing under the great Brian Clough. I mean, that seems like a totally incongruous alliance, Brian Clough and Stan Bowles. But from your recollection, how did that happen?
Well, from QPR, obviously, Clough is bought him. He's gone to Forest, and every game, every week, Stan would come down Saturday night, and how's it been this week? Oh, yeah, that's all right. All right. Stan didn't really elaborate. Yeah, all right, it was all right. All right. And what? All right, what? What's Cloughy like? And his eyes would go up, and he'd sort of look at you and say, "What's he like?" And it would get to a point. He didn't say too much the first couple of weeks. Then after about week 4, 5, 6, he said, "Oh, this is not going to work." He said he just talks to people like, you know, they're nothing. He said, you know, like if a guy's a groundsman, he's a groundsman. If a guy's a dustman, he's a dustman. It's like, "Hey, you, come here now." You know his name. Say his name, Stan would say. You know, so Stan was, you know, it was like a matter of time for Stanley before he was going to say, "I can't play for you." And that's obviously what happened when they got to the European Cup final. Cloughy picked John McGovern, and Stanley said to pick John McGovern in front of me. Got the train back to London, and that was it. I believe they give Stanley a call and said, like, "Can you get to the airport, your sub?" So I think Stan said, "Good luck, Mr. Clough, I'm playing cards." Something down that line, you know. And that's what it was. So, yeah, that was a tough one for Stanley, you know. But his life went on from there, and other doors open for it.
Now, you must have spent so many times with him. You must have so many anecdotes you've forgotten about. But I'd just like to finish off the podcast with, you know, some of the stories that you might be able to tell everyone on here about your off-field exploits with Stan.
Well, Stan was like one of these guys. If someone said to him, "Oh, Stan, how would you like to go in the Superstars? You know, you get $1,000. They'll give you it up front," which is a bad move. You know, they'll give it when you get there is a better move. And so we go to the Superstars. So he put me in it. He said, "Don, why don't you be my manager?" I said, "Yeah, that's a good idea." So he arranges for me to get a couple of £100 as manager. We get down there. And there's a delightful young lady who was organised it all. And I said, "Oh, Stan's here." And I said, "Oh, he's ready. Don't worry, he's ready." And Stanley's eyes went, "Yeah, okay." And I think there was 6 or 7 events. He did break the record there. He was last in 5 of them. He fell in the water in the rowing or the canoeing, whatever it was. He shot someone with the gun.
Shot James Hunt. I'd have done that though.
In the old like pistol thing. And I remember saying to the young lady, I said, look, I said, we haven't really trained for it this year, but we'll be ready next year.
Right.
I don't think so.
I'll get him in.
Off we went, we jumped in the car and boom, down to Shepherd's Bush and see the boys in the pub, have a pint and no bit of the dogs. It was all good fun in them days. Yeah. Lots of stories, but I can't go into them.
Hey.
And I think you spent quite a bit of your time together at White City Stadium.
That would be every Saturday and the odd Thursday. They used to only have two meetings a week there, you know. Then
Three.
Huh?
Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah, they do a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
But if you had a game on Wednesday, you wouldn't go, I suppose.
Did you guys ever win any money there?
Yeah, we won a few quid now and then. It wasn't always one-way traffic, you know. But Stan really wants somebody who liked to get really stuck in. Stan liked to be there, average 20 quid on this or 20 on that. And I dare say at the end of the night, if he won 50 quid or 20 quid, he's more than happy. But generally speaking, we left it behind.
Okay, we're almost drawing to an end to the podcast now. I'd just like for both of you to sum up what Stan means to you. Maybe Alan, you could start us off. What does sum up Stan Bowles' impact on football in this country and in European football?
Well, I think his impact was mainly at Shepherd's Bush, wasn't it? You know, because of the ignorance of the FA, the whole world didn't get to see him. I think I've mentioned, you know, about the biggest stage on earth, the greatest show on earth was the World Cup, and that would have been a stage for Stanley. There's no doubt about it. I can just see him walking out in the World Cup in Americana or something like that, and it would be. We went to Rome one day. We was on a trip to Rome, and he was outside the game at Rome, and I said, I'm not going in there to watch England, mate. Because I think they drew 0-0 with that to draw in Italy. And we were over there with the great Jaffa Brown. And I said, I'm not going in the ground, mate. He went, you are. He said, I want you to come and have a look where I played. He said, I played here one night. And we stood there and he said, that little patch there, that was my patch and that, you know. So he took a little bit of pride out of that, but it's what they took away from the people. People don't really understand what's taken away from a player when you get lesser players picked in front of you for your national team. It can be quite devastating and unfair because, you know, a lot of it is personal. Managers, Don Revie got personal with people. He didn't like us. He was racial towards Londoners. He certainly wouldn't have picked Stan, you know. He would rather have a big, strong lad who does what he's told, who come from Huddersfield or somewhere up there, and but he wouldn't want Stan Bowles in his team. And all he's doing is taking away a talent. He forgot that this game of ours, being national manager, is a game for the whole nation. It's not for him. It's not for the people of Leeds. It's not for the people in Yorkshire. It's for the whole nation. And when he picked a team, he never kept that in mind. You know, you have to play your best players, and it's cheated, really. We were cheated out of it. Stan was. I got banned. I got 2 caps. I should have only got 1 cap. I should have walked away and just said, well, I've got my 1 cap. I proved I can play at this level. But that's basically what I think of Stan. You know, it's what he could have gone on the great stage every. Don't play him for 4 years in the England team, but if you get to the World Cup, he's your man.
And Don, I'm sure the feelings are still raw because Stan's only just passed away and he was such a great friend of yours. But maybe you could sum up his impact on you as a man and as a friend for all those years.
Yeah, obviously, when we got the news that, you know, a couple of days before he's died, his daughter called and said, Dad's really near the end of the road. And, you know, we're sort of by the bedside and stuff. And then the news broke that he passed away. It was really sad. You know, everybody in the bush loved Bolton. You know, from the person who's working in the fish and chip shop to the person in the betting shop to the person in the pub. Stan was a humble guy. You're talking about a superstar. They're probably wrong to call him a superstar. He's a megastar. He was the best we've ever had. He was the best we've ever seen. And like, you know, after the games, we all know you get the autograph hunters and they want this. A lot of people push him out the way and go, stand and sign every single one. You want a photo, Stan? Yeah, come on, let's have a photo here. You're right, fine. And he might be there for 15 minutes. But he done that. You know, we went to hospitals and we went to see kids who were sick. We give them little presents. You know, okay, the club organised it, but we would go and we were happy to go. And then you realise how lucky you are in this world that you're not in there. You know, we know what went through to poor Alan, you know. So we know it's all very difficult. But like, I'd like to take this moment to really thank Stan's family for like the way they've looked after him in the last 7-8 years. It's been very, very, very difficult. You know, they brought him down to QPR on a few occasions where we've had games for him or we've had a little event for him. And we've been up to see him and stuff. But they've really, really been fantastic with him. And like everybody from the bush, everybody in football, I'd like to say on their behalf, rest in peace, Stanley. We love you. And thank you very much, the Bowles family, for the way they looked after him to the end.
Yeah, that's lovely. And
of course, sorry, Tony. In QPR, we've got the big, beautiful Stanley Bowles stand. So every time we go there, we see it. We've had the game against Bournemouth, which was fantastic when Eddie Howe brought his Bournemouth team down. And Bournemouth contributed the money, their expenses, back into the Stan Bowles situation. Rotherham United, we played them twice. That was one of the days which Stan's benefit game was Rotherham. We managed to beat them 4-2. And then the day Stan passes away, we beat Rotherham 2-1. I don't know what time he passed away, Stan, but we might have had a little bit of Stan spirit there to get the winning goal.
Brilliant. Well, it's a lovely way to remember a great footballer, and more importantly, from your recollection of him, both of you, a lovely man as well. And I'm sure he's someone who will never be forgotten at Loftus Road. That's for sure.
Well, I think that the family talk about Dodge. You know, they can keep this podcast and all the great things said about him. You know, it's just a shame we haven't got a little bit. You know, we can't show a few clips of him talking exactly what we.
But if you get a minute, if you can just tell him have the bedrooms ready for us, we should.
Don't do that.
Get the house sorted out.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay, guys, we'll let you get back to the sun and the beach of Egypt.
Well,
I get back to the wind and the rain of Britain.
Yeah, keep that polo neck jumper on, Tone.
I need another one on top of it. Thanks,
Good.
guys. Thanks for a great tribute to Stan Bowles. See you soon.
Tony. Thank you.